Good morning again.
Good morning again.
Good morning again. We have this month been talking about this power of thought, the idea of the creativity that each one of us has that's available to us through our thoughts. And we talk about this from this standpoint all the time. And something that happens to me is that as the person responsible for helping with the messages and the lessons each week, I find myself having to remind myself to practice what I preach. And often you will hear me say that when you see me standing here and you hear the things that I'm sharing, the things that I'm saying, the things that I am allowing to come through me, most often it is because I'm talking to myself. And you're actually when I was in seminary, a book that had us to read, you're actually overhearing the message that I'm really delivering to myself. And it's no different that this past week I had a situation, an occurrence in my life, a time in my life where I found myself very, very diligently applying and practicing what it is that I preach, and I felt joyful about the outcome. But I'd like to share the things that I used this week to help bring about that desired outcome. And it comes from the teaching. You've heard me talk about Neville Goddard before. Neville Goddard being one of the New Thought teachers that was around, literally died in the 60s, but he had a very, very rich life and very, very rich and prolific writing history and teaching history and all of that. And Neville Goddard talked a great deal about the power of imagination, and using our imagination to see what it is that we wish to have in our lives, and more importantly, in using that imagination to, as the title of today's message is, to feel it real. Feel it real. And so there's some steps that he suggested we use that I'd like to share, and then talk about how I use them. And the first is that we begin with the end in mind. We begin with whatever outcome it is that we wish to have, to see happen in our lives. That's where we begin. We come up with what it is that we wish to have. If it's that we would like a promotion, we see ourselves in that place. We have that promotion. If it's a partner, if it's some other thing, but whatever it is, we are clear about it. And it has to be something that we desire, not something that somebody else tells us that we ought to want and we should want, but something that we ultimately clearly desire, to have a clarity about that thing. And not to worry about the how, not to worry about how it's going to happen, but to be focused on the end result, as we hear, to start with the end in mind. And so that's a part of it. And then it's important to begin working the process, and as we start using our imagination, seeing the point of view is very important. Rather than looking and seeing ourselves in that promotion or in that job or shaking in that place, seeing from our eyes it happening. A different perspective, rather than looking and seeing ourselves outside of ourselves, what it would look like if we were in that position. What would it look like if we had that partner that we wanted in our lives? What would it look like? And we see from our own eyes, rather than seeing ourselves, but to see from our own eyes and see our perspective from that standpoint, to recognize it, to see it, but again, more importantly, to feel it. So then what we start doing is thinking about the state of consciousness, the states of consciousness that are as a result of what it is that we desire. If it is that we're thinking about a promotion or a new job or a partner, then part of it is there's going to be some happiness as a result of it. There's going to be a sense of accomplishment as a result of it. So then, what does accomplishment feel like? What does it feel like to be joyful? We all have those things, so we begin imagining ourselves, seeing ourselves, feeling in that way, feeling confident, feeling peaceful, feeling resourceful, feeling powerful, getting ourselves in that state where we see that happening. And then something that's really, really, truly important that he talks about is to have a point of activation. A point of activation. A single act that signifies that it's already been accomplished. It might be shaking the hand of the person who's congratulating us on that new job or on that promotion. It might be holding in the hand of our partner. It might be that if a person wants to be married, it might be touching that wedding band. But whatever it is, some point of activation that is there, that we see ourselves in that moment, recognizing that we've achieved it, that it's done, that it's already accomplished, that we begin to imagine ourselves in that and imagine what it feels like. And then we hear around us conversation, the conversation that goes along with whatever act, whatever desired end result that it is that we wish to hear or to feel, the conversation, if it's a word of congratulations. But whatever it is, that we get ourselves into that we feel it, that we recognize that it's a part of who we are now. It's our new reality. It's our new existence. It's our new place where we come from. And then once we have started to shape that and form it in the way that we wish to have it, then to spend some time, some quiet time, maybe lying down, or maybe before you go to bed at night, before you go to sleep. But spend some time in that space, seeing it, more importantly, feeling it. What are all of the things? What are some of the smells that you would have? Maybe it is that if it's a new job, you walk into that place and they're brewing fresh coffee. You smell the coffee brewing back in the break room. It might be that the place that you are walking on the beach with your partner, you smell the ocean, you hear the birds, and you do all of those things. But as vividly as you can, you see that and you see it from your own perspective. As vividly as you can, you rest in that. You allow it to happen. And then you see yourself with that point of activation. There's the handshake. And you feel it. It might be one of the examples that he uses is someone who was competing in a contest, a martial arts contest, and seeing themselves winning. And they saw themselves walking up to the judge's table, feeling all sweaty and, exhausted, but still exhilarated at the same time. And then shaking the hand of the judge. And then the other hand taking the trophy, being congratulated, and seeing that and feeling it happen. And so as I would read over the material and talk about that, this past week where I worked, we had a big event that I was the major person responsible for. And it caused me a lot of anxiety earlier in the week, and I was going through all of that, and I said, John, you gotta practice what you preach. You gotta practice, you think that the things that you're talking about this month is this power of thought. Take your mind off of worry, because all worry is a prayer for that particular result that you're worrying about. What is it that you'd like to see? So I saw myself looking in that space, looking in that room, in that place where we were meeting, where that event was taking place, and I heard the voices of the people that were there and all of that, but more importantly, I saw myself walking in and it being successful. I saw, more importantly, the things that needed to happen with all of the technology running smoothly and things being in place and those kinds of things there. We serve coffee and we serve other things. I smell the coffee in the room, the fruit, the lunch, and all of that, everything going successfully. And then my point of activation is that when it was all over, a particular person coming up to me, shaking my hand and congratulating me on a job well done. And so for the few nights leading up to that, that's where I was. As I drifted off to sleep, seeing myself in that space, and especially the night before, seeing that happen. Got up early that morning and spent some time still seeing it happen. And then that day came and things started to happen. And even as a couple of bumps along the way were there, I allowed myself to still stay in that space of it's all working out well and waiting on that opportunity to feel that handshake. And as things continue to move, my level of joy just started to go up and up and up because it was unfolding. It was happening. It was in that space exactly as I saw it happen. And then we were ending at 3 o'clock. And right as 3 o'clock came, bam, there it was, happening in that way. As I saw a successful day. And the thing of it is, it doesn't have to be just special events, that every day in your life and my life, we see it the way in which we wish to have it happen, the way in which we wish to live it, the way we wish for it to unfold. And we use the power, the creative power of God that is in us to let it be. And so it is.
And so it is.
Maybe we're all different, but we're still the same. We all got the blood beating, running in our veins. I know sometimes it's hard for you to see. You're caught between just who you are and who you want to be. But it seems you're alone and